So I know that a lot of people say that actors and musicians and athletes make way more money than they deserve compared to doctors and teachers. And while I agree that people like doctors and really especially teachers, social workers, don't get paid as much as they deserve, I don't think it's fair to blame actors and musicians and athletes because they get paid well for their jobs. The job of in the entertainment industry is really kind of like entrepreneurship. If I take someone like Lemmy Kilmister, for example, from Motorhead, he worked or led Motorhead for 40 years before he died, and he did not make that much money from being in Motorhead, even though Ace of Spades is one of the more popular metal songs in metal. He never really made that much money from it. The most money he ever made was from co-writing a couple songs off Ozzy's No More Tears record. And he wasn't living on a fixed income or anything. It was like he didn't get a paycheck every week. He made a certain amount of money from however many records were sold. The same thing goes for athletes and actors. Or, well, actors, they make movies, they promote it, they get brand deals or whatever, and they make money off that. Athletes, they play their games, whatever sport you want to think of. They play the sport, and however many people pay for a ticket, they make a percentage off the tickets and the merch sales, and that's how they make their money. It has nothing to do with whether a teacher or a social worker or a paramedic makes enough money. It's really not fair to those types of people, the entertainers, that they should get blamed for but the circumstances in which certain people in certain jobs don't get paid fairly. Now, of course, I know the Met Gala just happened, and I'm not going to say anything unique about the Met Gala that hasn't already been said by anybody in the past day or two, whatever. But those are like the top echelon, whatever the word is, of those types of people, the actors and the musicians and athletes. I'm not really talking about them, I'm talking about more like the mid-range. Although I will say that even at the top, it still applies to them anyway, because they themselves are not affecting, like they're not a teacher can make more than $60,000 a year. Which leads to my next point. If we're not going to blame these people who are making these big amounts of money from entertaining people, who we should blame are the people who run the systems who are not fairly compensating these teachers, and these social workers, these paramedics, and whoever else, firefighters, you name it. So like for teachers, for example, it's the school administration that isn't paying them fairly. They don't get paid fairly, not because entertainers get paid well, but because the system doesn't pay them. If you want to go off the argument that, like I said, athletes get paid more than they deserve. Oh, that's all well and good, but you still pay for their services, assuming that you watch sports. You still pay for tickets. You still pay for merch. You still watch advertisements that said athletes do. And also assuming that you have kids, you also engage in the school system, which means putting them through the schools, paying for lunches and field trips and textbooks and all the other stuff. My mother is a elementary school teacher. She doesn't get fairly compensated for her work. She has to pay for her own school supplies every summer before school starts. The school generally does not give her the easiest kids to work with, although I won't talk too much about them because those kids have their own shitty circumstances that I don't really need to get into. But basically, to put it lightly, she doesn't get paid as fairly as she should. But that's not the fault of any entertainer. It's the fault of the system because they don't pay her fairly. I'm assuming they're not compensating her for school supplies that she has to pay for. I can't say for certain that they are, but it doesn't seem like to me they are. Actually, there was something that happened recently where they took these kids or students on a field trip to some zoo or whatever, and apparently they had changed some things around so the kids didn't really get to do all the stuff that they had been able to do last year. So now my mom has to get all these other things to like make these kids feel better because they didn't get to do the things they were able to do the last time they went to the zoo. And mind you, the parents are the ones that are paying for it. They're not gonna get a payback either, but my mom is gonna get paid for it, paid back for spending money on this stuff either. Whatever she decides to do for the kids, since they didn't get to do all the stuff on the field trip that they were expecting they were gonna do. That's the fault of the administration for not being aware of it, and it's gonna be the fault of the administration for not fairly compensating her for doing all of that. As far as doctors, I know people say doctors are usually, I've heard that like usually teachers and doctors are like the ones that the people will usually say that phrase that they'll get paid. I feel like doctors get paid pretty well, all things considered, so I'm not going to mention them. But if there is anybody that needs to get a pay cut, there are two types of people that need it: the politicians and the CEOs, because neither of them actually do anything to benefit anyone. Politicians, firstly, I think we all know they don't live up to any of the promises that we put them in office for, so obviously they don't. That's before even mentioning all of the ridiculous amount of corruption that they do, so obviously they deserve a lot more than a pay cut. As far as CEOs go, I cannot for the life of me figure out what it is that they do. The best thing that I've come up with is that they're like figureheads, like the King of England. They just take all the blame for the shit that the shareholders do. So, yeah. It seems to me that the anger towards people being unfairly compensated has been misplaced. It needs to be guided towards the actual culprits. It's not the fault of the athletes or the actors or the musicians that teachers and doctors and paramedics and all these other types of people who are being fairly compensated, it's not their fault. It's the system. It's the politicians. It's the CEOs. It's the administrators. And anyone who controls the system where people are not fairly compensated. That's the problem here. That's who we need to be talking about, not the people who act more like entrepreneurs who are not living based on a weekly paycheck. That's basically all I have to say about that. And I'm gonna leave it there. So yeah, see ya.